Recall that last time I hinted that we would see just how much Eastern cultures and Western cultures are starting to look a lot like each other. So in an Eastern and Middle Eastern culture, we have an honor-shame paradigm. What that is that someone tries to do that which is honorable in order to bring communal honor to themselves, and they try to avoid that which is shameful in the culture's eyes to avoid the cultural shame that would happen to them. We think of this as a very foreign idea in the West. That's just for Easterners. But is it really? I want you to think about the new phenomenon we have in the West called the cancel culture. Let's say you're someone famous. You're a sports star, or you're a musician, or an actor, and you say something that happens to go against the current culturally accepted narrative. What happens is the society doesn't engage in whether or not your idea has merit reasonably or by reason of facts. What we do is we try to shame you out of having that opinion. It's very much like an honor-shame system. Jesus spoke and lived in an honor-shame system, and it's interesting to me that such an ancient person could have such relevant things to say about us today in our increasingly honor-shame-based society, even here in the West. Look at that story in John chapter 9. In that particular story, Jesus comes across a man who was born blind, and he heals the man. Now, he heals the man on a Sabbath day. And how does he do it? He makes mud in the ground and puts it on the man's eyes, tells him to go and wash, and then he will receive his sight. Now, why did Jesus make mud instead of just healing the man outright? It's because Jesus is a troublemaker, and that's what he does sometimes. Because he makes mud in order to upset the Pharisees, who are steeped in tradition, so that they would think that Jesus made something, he performed some kind of work on the Sabbath in violation of their traditions. So he does it, they get upset, and they go and they see this man who is now newly sighted. And see, the Pharisees think something is afoot, something is wrong here, that there's a scam going on. And they go and they accost the man's parents and say, "Is this really your son who you say was born blind?" They question his parentage and they question the legitimacy of his blindness. That's interesting because what they're trying to do is say that Jesus is a faker. Now, if you understand what's going on in the full context, you understand that the Pharisees were telling people, if you say that Jesus is the Messiah, whoever follows Jesus will be put out of the synagogue, which is the worst public shaming a Jew in the first century could possibly endure. They would be put out of the place where the community comes together. They would be canceled. And so this young man is healed. And the parents are accosted by the Pharisees who threaten them, if you say Jesus is who he claims to be, you will be canceled. And they don't want to be canceled. So what do? They throw their son under the bus. They say, we know this is our son who was born blind. And they say, who healed him? And they say, we don't know. Now that's a cop-out, because of course they know. You think their son didn't tell them who healed them? Of course he did. But what they say is, ask him, he is of age. Now, I'm going to speculate a little bit and say this. The reason they said ask him because he is of age is because he might have looked young, or maybe he really was young. He just had the age of accountability happen to him where he just came of age. So the Pharisees do ask him, and he says it's Jesus. He has no fear of being canceled. He knows what he knows, that he was once blind and now he sees. And this man, no matter how socially unacceptable it might be, to follow him is the one who healed him. And in fact, he does it in a very teenagery kind of way. He's very brash in his response to them. Now, so incensed are the Pharisees that they make good on their threat, and they actually do put him out of the synagogue. They cancel him. This is interesting, because Jesus' honor-shame radar pings now, and he knows this young man has been put out of the synagogue. He has now been shamed in the utmost way socially. And so he goes to the young man, and he says, I have come that those who are blind may now see, but those who claim to see will know that they're blind. He basically says, I'm turning the tables on this. What Jesus does in a remarkable way is he replaces the cheap cultural honor bestowed by hypocrites with the incalculable honor bestowed only by the Son of God. This reminds me of the way in which Jesus bridges innocence and guilt cultures like in the West and honor-shame cultures that exist in the East. And it reminds me of the hymn beautifully written by Isaac Watts. The Lord is just and kind, the meek shall learn his ways, and every humble sinner find the methods of his grace. For his own goodness' sake, he saves my soul from shame. He pardons though my guilt be great through my Redeemer's name. Innocence and guilt meet honor and shame in Jesus, who bestows upon us the honor that we once had and we can now have in him by pardoning our guilt and declaring us innocent because we have his righteousness. Only Jesus can bridge all.